comments. So why is it not showing? Let's see. Wait.
Sorry, I don't know how to turn that off.
That's all right. All right, we're on. So
Awesome.
if anybody's coming on, let us know. Now I'm listening. I got to make sure I'm not listening on the phone. Can we be this casual?
It says plans to go live.
I've got it on. I mean, I see it on.
That's the advertisement.
Yeah, but then it should.
Hello. It says plans to go live. Oh, it's a little delayed.
It's a little delayed, kind of like us. So.
Awesome. Here we go.
So here we go. Watch this. Let's see if you can. Can you see the comments when I put them up? Oh, you can see them on the phone.
Yeah.
There you go. So I'm going to pull that over there.
Okay.
So well, let's see. Yeah, I'm watching the delay, and it's like, hey, yeah, we already did that. Kenny's on here. Kenny Johnston's on here. My favorite brother.
Hey, Kenny.
Roy Wooten's watching. But wait, what?
Where's Kenny?
And Jake Connor. So there is a beard in the house. I knew the East Texas. All right, so let me run through this while there's me. There's you, just you. Now, here's what we've also got. How much time we got?
We got 2 minutes, according to mine.
Got 2 minutes, so. Wave, wave, wave.
Can they hear us now?
I don't know. Can you hear us? Let us know if you can hear us, guys. Oh, I just put up the...
Oh, Wade, there we are.
Wade Schumpert, Abilene, Texas.
I don't know. I guess it's showing live. I guess I got to push join. Oh, there it is. Now I can see.
Now you'll be confused if you listen to it.
I won't listen.
So here we go. There's Wade. Hello, men. Men are waiting. Wade said we can hear. Good to go. So everybody can hear Roy. That's my main concern.
Hey, brothers.
So you drinking coffee this late at night, or are you drinking something else?
I had a cup about an hour ago. I've got a meeting after this one.
I needed a cup. My in-laws came over, so yeah, loud and clear it says Andrew Shipley. So
awesome. Hey, Andrew. Yeah, good memories. Yeah, so I had a cup about an hour ago, and now it's ice water.
Ice water. Oh, I was like, that your coffee turned to ice water? So that lends itself to a question. Are you an iced coffee man? Can you do iced coffee? You're not?
No, I will do coffee that has some ice in it to just take the burn out of it. I'm not a coffee sipper. I'm a coffee drinker.
I used to do that.
Chugger. So, I can't take Starbucks just as they serve it and drink it without some ice in it.
No, because that's the hottest coffee in the land outside of... they had that McDonald's coffee, and that lady, she burned her privates. And
Yeah.
and I've been drinking it for a long time, but my privates had never burned. So well, I don't know what the deal was. So
It
um,
was probably where she applied it. I don't know.
yeah, well, and then they had to come up with a disclaimer of this coffee is very hot. Do you think?
Hmm.
So all right, so we're at 6:01. Welcome to Facebook Live. Um, Coming in hopefully loud and clear. Everybody tells us it is. Good to see you guys on here. Keep leaving us comments and or questions, and we'll throw those up. We're trying to use a couple of little bells and whistles. You can't make the two guys on here look any better, but we're trying to be a little slicker. Slicker works.
It's
Um,
certainly not your device that you're watching this on. It is. We actually look this bad. Is
yeah,
that what you're saying? Yeah.
do not adjust your set.
Don't adjust your.
It's
Yeah.
like, it looks pale. Nah, they're pink. So,
Well, just in case you didn't know, my name is Roy Wooten, Executive Director Crucible, and my Crucible brother and friend Mike Hall, J. Michael Hall, is one of the leading experts in the nation, I would say in the world, on fatherhood, and has been for the last couple of decades. So I'm very thankful that we can have this conversation as we start off June, which is Father's Day month, right? That's the
right.
time when people want to get your attention. So we don't have a real formal set, but we do want to answer questions, especially as it relates to fatherhood. One of the things that I was thinking about is we spend a lot of time at Crucible looking backwards at our own fathers and the pattern that our fathers gave us in the way that they interacted with us. But we don't do a lot of things about what it means to be a dad right now in this moment with my children. And so I hope we can get to that. But I would love for you to just share a bit about what have you been doing with dads? How do you engage fathers and how do you get them connected with their kids? What are you doing?
So yeah, when you say expert, I am. I will consider myself an expert, but it's more so in that engagement effort, and really trying to explain to people the nature of fathers because of all the dads we've worked with, and the way that we've worked with them. Right. So I've got a class that's 10 weeks. It's deep. I say it's 2 foot wide and a mile deep, but most of our work is a foot deep and 1,000 miles wide because we're in schools, we're in Head Starts. But we also know that that's kind of all of what dads need is that bump, that push, or more than anything, kind of that encouragement. Because one of the reasons it's easy to be an expert. Well, I always tell people I'm one of the top 10 guys in the country in fatherhood, and they're like, ooh, or they're like, that's kind of cocky. And I'm like, there's 11 of us, right? And I know I'm better than that one dude. And Roy and I know who I'm talking about when I say that one dude. He's out in Arizona, or now he's in LA. But anyways, um, not that it's personal or anything, but so what I've done is the last 20 years is spend time getting dads engaged with their kids in school, and in that work trying to explain to people why we need to do this, why this is important, and so that's led us through some research to some research. And the really cool part about that is the research always comes back to kind of prove what we see in the field, and or what we see in the field will somehow find the research and goes, that's exactly what we're seeing. And so that's what I do. And so where I get into the research and stuff is not so much doing it, but kind of applying it. And had a really good guy that I worked with when I first started, who just recently passed, but taught me how to kind of do this work like anthropology, like pay attention to how people act and react. And that's one of the reasons. That's some of the discussions you and I've had about Crucible. Is like you said, we spend time on the carpet, we spend time in those places. A lot of times talk about where we've been, and some guys even bring their own fatherhood piece of I've not been a good father, or I've been absent, or I've been angry, or it's still in their present fathering, but we know so much of it comes from kind of where they came from. So that's kind of where I've spent my work, and a lot of it has been to kind of dig up this stuff to explain to other people why we ought to be doing what I hope we should be doing. So.
Yeah. One of the things you turned me on to a number of years ago, maybe a dozen years or so, was some research called Father Need.
Yeah.
And that was put out by I can't remember the
Cal
guy's name.
Pruitt. Cal Pruitt out of Yale.
Correct. Yeah. So one of the big things around that was just that kids need mom and dad. There's something different about the way that dads parent, and there's something good that comes from, especially those formative years, from dad being engaged and present in their life. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about kind of what are some of those things that it really makes a difference from dads.
Yeah, and so father need started out with kind of the new stay-at-home dad thing that was hitting, 15, 20 years ago. It's not that new of a thing now. But the idea was, so how are dads different if they're staying at home? Because we've switched roles of domestic and breadwinners and all that thing. How is it different? And what he found was dads that come home from work or dads that either work in the home or from the home, there's really not much difference. And it's more so how the kids see us. And so another colleague of mine and I are doing videos right now on development. And we just finished one on labor and delivery, for a dad that is about to go through that. And even the first 9 months of development. So it goes all the way back to not only were you there to contribute for your, 3.5 minutes, whatever fun you had there, but I once hit 5. I'm just going to brag a little bit. It was like 5 minutes. But, and then she came in the room. But anyways, so the conception, of course, is one of the roles we play. But what was interesting about that first 9 months of fatherhood is when dad's present in the life of the mom and engaged in that pregnancy, that kid has a higher birth weight. He responds to the father's voice the day the child is born. So all this stuff that we kind of hear about, number one, you'll get involved when they get bigger. No, you're already involved. And number two, that the kids don't need you. They already recognize you as different, necessary but different, right? We might say now essential and different. But yeah, so when we're holding that child, we hold them differently. And because we hold them differently, because we change diapers differently, mom spends time changing diapers as a way to connect to kids. We as dads kind of spend time changing diapers, mainly just utilitarian, of getting that child less stinky, and even in doing so, sometimes make it a time trial. Like a calf roping or NASCAR. It's like, I bet I can get this done in 3.8 seconds. Throw our hands up. Don't warm the wipey. But what mom is doing is right, but what she's doing is she's talking to the child, she's stroking the child. She's doing that because that's what moms do, and that's what kids need from moms. But that playful nature helps kids even in diaper changes. And so some of the work that Kyle Pruitt talked about was from Michael Yogman at Yale also. So he had kids, 6-month-old, in its seat on monitors, and he would show them a picture of their mom on a screen. And their heart rate would go down, their brain activity would decrease, their hands and feet would stop moving, their eyes would droop, their shoulders would drop, because they became very calm when they saw their mom. And at 6 months old, when they showed the dad, heart rate went up, brain activity increased, hands and feet started moving. Because when mom shows up, it's like everything's going to be fine. When dad shows up, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. This is on. And we as dads, a lot of times get in trouble, for that interactivity. Because mom's like, oh, be careful. And the babies eat it up. And also babies will teach us that. Right? If a dad doesn't, it's interesting because if a dad doesn't have that kind of natural inclination to play, which is rare, we may be afraid of holding the baby, but if we get comfortable holding the baby, it's like a football, it's whatever. Most moms hold babies facing back. Most dads hold babies facing out. And so it's interesting to watch that when you see it, when you've got the snuggles and the harnesses and all that. No matter how the kid's wrapped up, when mom has them, they're almost up against the breast, and when dad has them, they're like, look, dude, we're going, you're going first out into the world. So all of that lends itself, and then of course we talk about education, where when dads read things happen, when dads tell their daughters, I love your daughter, and I call her Unstoppable Brooke, and what you did with her was you told her she was beautiful, which she needed, but you also told her she could whoop every butt on the block, which she can, and so she got from you that nobody could tell her she wasn't capable. So dads that have that relationship with their daughters in education have daughters that do better in math and science because they're not listening to whatever we would call social norms about what girls do or what girls can't do. My daughter-in-law had some she still has some immune issues. And so we're telling her all the time, you're so strong, because as a child, nobody was telling her that because they were so worried about her health,
Yeah.
and she's a strong person, but she doesn't know it yet, right? She doesn't believe it. And so dads, when they do that from the get-go, have kids that are more resilient, more assertive. I almost said aggressive, which is okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be negative aggression, but they get up and go at it. And your daughter is, man, she's like the test case. She's like the textbook study of when you tell her she's beautiful and capable, just get out of her way.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about too how you were talking about the kids kind of show it out. How frequently whenever the kids were young, like I would get Blake and put him up on a tree limb, and then I'd tell him to jump, and he'd be really scared the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I'd put him down, and Deborah would be saying, "Stop that! You're going to hurt him," And he'd be saying, "Daddy, Daddy, again,"
right,
over and over again. Unfortunately, Brooke was already up in the tree, and I would turn around and she would be jumping, So it was quite an adventure. It was a wonderful adventure, but it was quite an adventure. I do think that sometimes when I've had dads call for counseling in the past and coaching in the most recent, a lot of times they're worried about if they're a good dad or if they're doing something wrong. They think maybe they've messed up their child, and there's some sense in me that there are no perfect fathers. I mean, except for Father God.
Right.
We all are going to make mistakes, but I've certainly worked with fathers who don't have that desire to know, am I doing a good job? They have no desire or a will to do a good job. I wish you'd speak to that. And whenever what are some telltale signs that they're probably doing a lot better than they think they are?
Okay, so I just threw up a comment from Andrew. I'll be having my first child this August, and one of the big fears I have is trying to not be my son's carpet work. So let me tap into my warrior quadrant here. Can I use a crucible word or two here? Okay, you're going to fuck up your children. Okay, now I'm gonna back off of that a little bit, but you are. And so I knew I was doing it. I knew my dad did it to me pre-carpet, right? One of the things, like one of the real eye-opener books for me was Wild at Heart. And it just laid out the father wound, and he's very right. You're gonna have it, and you're gonna provide it. And with my sons being 28 and 24, they kind of want to bring that stuff back at me sometimes, and I'll own it because I'm like, yeah, dude, you're right, and I hate it, but I'm also like, no, I know, but also it's you don't know what you think sometimes is a wound is the blessing. Even is a wound. You just don't always know that. But yeah, God's the perfect God. And if we were actually perfect fathers, nobody would be attracted to God, right? If you could actually pull that off. The other thing is, you and I both know this because our kids are older. They won't always know that you messed up. Sometimes you'll see it in your kid and go, oh, I did that. But the other piece is your kids are resilient. And so, yeah, get ready. I had a great dad. My dad made some major mistakes. I was the first kid. But just as a heart of a dad, I wouldn't trade for any of it, right? So if I can go through this. But things he said that were harsh, I kept. And he said them, and it was his responsibility that he said them. It was my responsibility to deal with it. And that's what I love about Crucible is it gives us permission to go back and go, okay, that's what I heard, or that's what I thought as a child, and we're like, but that's not what God thinks of you, and honestly, that's not what we think of you, and it is a lifelong process because you have a God that waits for you and wants you to come to Him, and we are all the prodigals, and as much as He won't chase us down, He's waiting by the road for us, and at the same time, it comes down to us to make that turn and come back. And so I think we have to understand I think that's part of my job now. I'm scared to death about decisions my adult children will make, but I know that number one, God's got them all the time. Always did, but I always thought I had to do. I had a responsibility. But the other thing is, like when I'm asked at like a church or a religious setting to talk about parenting, I always bring up Samson, and I think Samson was given to us as a hero. He was a major flawed individual, and
Right.
his dad, when he got the message that this was a special child, called the angel back and said, "So what are the rules? So what do we do here?" And they gave him all the rules, right? And we have no indication that they didn't follow the rules. But think about being Samson's parents in the grocery store. And somebody goes,
Hmm.
"How's Samson? How's Samson doing?"
Yeah.
Well, he met this girl. She's a Philistine. Was dating with her. And then things got bad at the bachelor party. And he got mad. And he stormed out. And he made a bet he shouldn't have made. And then she
Right.
lied. And then
Yeah.
and then he ended up killing 1,000 people. And
Right.
foreskins are involved. I don't know, all this stuff, right? So, but he still became a hero. And I think part of what we have to understand is our job is to do the best we can. But the best job we have is to point them to God. So, two things is number one, know that, and this is, I've seen this in my work, I've seen this in Crucible, is a guy doesn't think he can ever kind of find redemption as a father because of the age of his child or maybe some of the severity of his actions, right? Your kids are waiting for you to they're waiting to redeem you, right? As a dad. Um, so short story long, that's how I do this, right? I had a guy in my 10-week class. This class was for guys on probation for child support. So there's a lot of business going on in there. And he said, every time I tried to find my kid, the mother, we get them to not call her the ex. That's pretty dehumanizing over time. But the mother of his child would move. And so we said, keep going, keep getting back in. He said, he's 14. I said, keep reaching out. So he reached out again while he was in class. He told the kid said, you never cared about me. You never came to my birthday. You never sent me a present. He goes, if you'll just come talk to me. So he finally got the kid to be there, takes him to a closet, and he opens it, and he shows him, he had kept them all. Every card, every gift that he had sent,
Wow.
still in the wrapper with all the kids' addresses,
Yeah.
right? And with every return to sender on there. And the kid then he had to help his kid not be so angry at the mom because of what she did, right? Another guy felt he was older dad, got sideways with mom. Mom pulls the kid away. He feels the same way. So he finally gets the kid, goes and talks to the kid and says, I'm so sorry, I messed up. And, he's trying to explain all this. I was older, I was this, I was that. And the kid said, Dad, can we just start over? And so
Yeah.
your 4-year-olds want to do that, your 14-year-olds do that. And so I would encourage you guys, start every day. You know what? And keep score if you need to, but don't keep score. Just know that I'm going to get up and I'm going to play hard again tomorrow. Because the kids will remember that. They're going to remember. There will be time on the carpet where they remember something. But the other thing they'll remember is what you do. And our older kids begin to figure out, it's like, oh, wow, that wasn't easy, huh? Like when I look
Yeah.
back at what my dad did, I realize I wouldn't want to raise me. But
Yeah.
yeah, so understand they're going to know it's over time. It's a long run piece. But your kids are waiting for you to make whatever turn you need to make.
Yeah. I've told many adult parents. In fact, the one in the last 10 days or so, his daughter is in her mid 50s, and so he's older, and she's kind of banished him from
Mm-hmm.
her life. And I said, "What do you really want?" And he said, "I just want to have a relationship with her." And I said, if you try to control her to get that, will you have the relationship you want? And he said, no.
Yeah.
I said, so what can you do? Just something little that you could do that might lead to on the path. And he said, I think I can occasionally send her a letter. I can occasionally. He said, he got into trouble texting her too much one time, and so he said I can do like once a week, And I said, yeah, and wait.
Yeah.
Like the prodigal father, the father of the prodigal son, I do believe that sometimes when adult children get to a point where they're in some kind of major family life cycle shift,
Right.
uh, they're about to get married, they're about to have their first kid, about to be honeymooners, go through a divorce, major medical issue, something that they'll turn back and glance over toward a parent that they've somehow banished from their life. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's too late. And I also believe wholeheartedly that it's never too late to start doing something. But I think a lot of dads fear I'm not good enough,
Right.
that I'm going to mess up somehow. And so some dads will stay on the sidelines. I had a dad who was very passive. My father,
Right.
you've met. My father was just trying to survive the crazy of my mother, and and he showed up in a very passive way in my brother and my life as a parent, and being on the sidelines, not being actively engaged in your child's life, getting to know who their friends are, getting to know, not a helicopter parent, but
Right.
knowing what they like, what are their faves, having a relationship with them. You and I've talked about, like, sometimes I would bring the kids into my world.
Right.
I'd take them to the hardware store. Uh, it's a whole other story. I would take them into my life, but they need me to sit on the floor and play games, cars. My daughter, when she was young, painted my nails and did my hair. Yeah, I used to have hair. Uh, all of those kinds of things I think are really important. And I know I really blew it at so many. I can remember times I
Right.
blew it each of them. And I remember Dad, whenever I was a young boy, being telling me to, give me a crescent wrench. He was underneath a car, and I went and I brought him a tool that I thought was a crescent wrench, and he threw it, and he huffed and puffed, and he went over and grabbed the crescent wrench and went back under. We didn't have a conversation, but I knew I'd screwed up,
Right.
Um, and I thought, I will never do that to my child.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually working a weekend, and that scenario came up, and the guy was doing work around that issue, and I just had this memory of me being underneath doing some plumbing in my kitchen, and Blake was probably 7 or 8, and I asked for a tool, and I was like, up under
Right.
there, you know, and he gave me the wrong one. I couldn't see where to flip, and I just wanted to blow up, and I didn't blow up. But whenever I came out of there, I think I gave him the same look my father did.
Right.
And so I think there's something about
Mm-hmm.
self-compassion in the moments I blow it, and then also being able to own that I've owned the moments that have come to mind with my children over the years, and during the parenting years when they were in the house, sometimes it would be an hour later or
Right.
the next day, but certainly humility and asking for forgiveness is a good thing.
Well, and I'll tell you, so my dad, like I said, was just like that, very short tempered. And the amazing thing as I look back was every time he did something like that, um, I didn't go to bed where he didn't apologize, right?
What?
And I didn't throw. I don't think I threw anything at my kids. I don't remember. That one doesn't come up. Now I said things and I did things, but I didn't do that. But I think how hard it is to apologize, right, for even the simplest of things sometimes, and it's so like it was humbling to see that he did that. And I remember particularly Josh, and I think mainly because he was kind of more like me in a lot of in demeanor ways. I mean, Jake and I are a lot alike as well. But I remember watching his countenance fall, right? Um, and I was like, oh, you just knew it happened, right? And so yeah, I think you've got to give yourself grace. I think it is easier to apologize than you think because what we don't want to do is apologize because we think they're going to give it back to us. Right? I remember, I mean, when I was 12 or 13, I thought it, but I don't think I ever said it. was,
Yeah.
I got an idea. How about you don't do this tomorrow and you don't have to apologize, you know? But that's the other piece is, so in this 10-week class that I had, we had a fathering set, we had them talk about their own dads. And what they realized was a lot of them had either absent, abusive, or alcoholic dads. And then when we worked through that exercise, they realized that they were almost exact, like whatever their challenge was very similar. They were absent, they were aggressive or abusive, or they were alcoholic. And so what we told them and what I'll tell our guys here is we make that promise to ourselves as kids that I'm never going to do that. And then we look back and we're like, God, I just did what I said I'd never do. And what you have to understand is at the point of stress, you'll return to what you know, right? That's a learned behavior that unfortunately we pass. And some of it's just what we do under stress, and we're putting ourselves under stress. But under stress, we're going to return to what we know. And it takes a really, it's not huge, except that you got to have that gap where not just being intentional, but you've got to make a conscious decision to do something different. And so as all, we're getting these questions about what, how do I not do that? How do I know what to do? One of the things you've got to think about is, okay, before I react, and that's, if anything's helped me, that's been it. I want to do exactly what my dad did. But number one, what's that going to do for my kid? And the other piece of that is, what am I accomplishing here? Right? And it's just a split-second gap. But we have to know that you are not a failed human being by returning to what you know. And to not do that is not this huge epiphany. It's not a lobotomy. It's not, 27 hours of therapy, even though that might help. It is making a conscious decision to go, I have options in how to react.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I do think the more work I do, and specifically work, carpet work, on getting at those messages actually helps me live more in authenticity, so that I engage in that stuff much less frequently. Before we get to Kenny's question, I want to answer Andrew Shipley specifically around how can I teach the 4 quarters to my young child,
Right.
And I would say what we tell them is so less effective than what they see in us. Right. So as you continue to do your work, Andrew, and you keep working on being more and more the kind of man that you want to be, all that Christ wants you to be, I think that's going to be more impactful than anything that you try to teach. Once they get old enough, maybe 5, 6, 7, easy check-ins instead of sachet emotions. Maybe it's sad, mad, glad, and a frad, or something. But something real simple, so that the kids can talk about how they're feeling, and being able to express their feelings verbally may prevent them from expressing them in other ways. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and it also has to be expressed over time. Like when you talk about the 4 quadrants, like you don't get to tell your kid how you're a king, because if you do that when they're young, when they turn teenagers, you're like, that's just gonna, you just got to show up and do it, right?
Right.
And so I remember my dad as a younger father, and I knew about the warrior. I knew he was trying to be the sage, but I watched him over time. So one of the greatest things that was ever said about my dad was, as an elder, when they said, when your dad walks in, the sheep settle down, right? Well, I can look back and know that about him as a younger man, but I didn't think that way, and there's no way he even knew it to express it. And I think what you're telling Andrew is so powerful too, because it's like, you live that out, do your work, understand where you're at, put those things into your life, and your kids will see it. You talked about doing the work, how it's affected how you do things. It's even affected how I talk to my kids when they bring some of that back. Not only am I now giving myself some grace, right, of like, yeah, you're right. Because it's just it's not as painful, because I know it's true. I know it doesn't define me. And I want to let them to know that, yeah, I have no reason to tell you it's not true. All the pain that you felt, all the dumb things your dad did are absolutely true. That's not only being authentic, but it's like they need to know that, And I've told them, you'll understand down the road. I don't know if I can ever understand. Yeah, me neither. You'll understand, right? When you're under the sink and you're worried about either paying a plumber or the floor flooding, or how are we going to do all the things we're going to do and still get a sink fixed, and I got Little League and I got this and I got that, whatever we stress ourselves out about, that's when I used to go my dad, I'm going to point over here. My dad used to live 200 yards from me before he passed. My mom still lives over there. I used to go over about once a month and apologize. He's like, for what? I'm like, for being 15. What'd you do when you're 15? I was just 15. And thanks for not killing me, as my kids would turn 15. And even then, he had those times where he said, I know I did this. I know I did that. So he had a heart transplant. And he was, like I said, just a great enough guy to take my brother and I and sit us down over a lunch and kind of lay out, look, I'm about to go into surgery one of these days, who knows when. If I don't come out this, if I do come out this, and he even said, I know I made mistakes, and my little brother, my little brother said, you did not beat me enough. You didn't know all the things I did, and so we have to give that to ourselves. The article that I wrote for the newsletter this month, we've got to do that for our dads, and understand, you're going to be talked about on the carpet someday, which would be a huge blessing because that means your kid is doing this work, right? You have led your child at some point or another, not through hopefully adversity, but leadership, that you were man enough to step into this kind of work and say, I want to be different. I want to make a difference. I want to do the work. I want to be a better man. My kids they're watching even now. They're watching Dad not giving up at 53 and doing maybe some things that are hard. Right. Yeah. And that's not to toot my own horn. It's just like, no, I'm around good men that do the same thing. And I'm inspired by those guys. And hopefully that inspires, my kids.
Let's get to Kenny's question.
Yeah. So, Kenny, this is one I get all the time.
Go ahead first.
You want me to go or you want to go?
Yeah, why don't you go at it first? Yeah.
Well, so we talk about a lack of masculine nurturing. And I think one of the things you have to do is if you're a dad that didn't have some of that, first off, go for what you thought you needed. Fatherless kids have a very good idea about what they needed. Well, here, Roy, I can take you off for a minute. All right, so I'll do this. So kids know. So you as a father that didn't have a father around, think about what were you looking for? What did you wish you had had? And that's not always true, but it goes back to our little boy. Like what we do this work in Crucible is, our little boy knows what he wants. And so I would tap into your little boy as a father to know what your kids want. The other thing is, don't believe all the hype about you not knowing what you know as a father. You are wired for it, and your kids will show you the way. So I'll give you some science, and then I'm going to turn it over to Roy. So when the child is born and a father holds his own child for the first time, this child is emitting all kind of things. I think it's spiritual, but it's also scientific. Child's putting out pheromones. When a father holds his very own child, there's all these chemical receptors that happen, and a man's estrogen goes up and his testosterone drops pretty dramatically. And it's basically so we won't eat our young, right? But it's a physical, and again, I think it's spiritual. God sets us that way so that we become more nurturing, right? And you will know how to nurture. And you need to respect mom for what she's doing, but part of what you have to do as a dad is to fight for what you need to do as a father, because your heart is telling you. I meet very few guys that don't have a heart to be a father. And so if your heart tells you that kid needs to bounce a little bit, then bounce the kid a little bit. If you need to hold the kid facing the other way, hold the kid the other way. If you don't care which way Elmo is on the diaper, then put it on. The kid's going to live, And the other thing is, you will make mistakes while doing that. But what you're going to do is you're going to gain competency from getting into the action, getting into the work, and doing what you need to do as a dad. You're going to find that maybe you shouldn't have bounced that child so much. So I'm going to go back to Roy and I for a minute. Roy, have you ever had a kid puke on your face? If you ever hold your child up, yeah. See, I have vivid, I have
Yes.
vivid memories of
Uh,
shakety, shakety, shake. How's
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Guess what I learned? You don't shake a kid after a bottle. You know
Right.
how I learned that? I got puked on 2 or 3 times. It took me a while.
Right.
And so anything that I know now to tell young fathers is because I screwed up beforehand. So your
Yeah.
competency, the way you gain competency is doing the work. The reason moms are so good at momming is because everybody expects them to do the work. We give them grace for mistakes, and we've got to give ourselves that same opportunity as a father. So, what would you tell Kenny or anybody that like they didn't have a father in their life? How do they begin to model that
Yeah.
nurturing?
So the first thing I want to say is there is this like mom network. If a mom has sisters and a mother and mother-in-law and all that network is really involved in trying to teach her how to parent. But dads frequently don't. There's not a connection and a network, and there's something I've seen men who I judge to be much more masculine than me, and seen men that are much more feminine than me, right? That you might say are very feminine in the way that they move or the way that they talk. I have seen both those fathers do very much the same thing with children.
Right.
And I think there is some trust that, as we teach to get in touch with your authenticity and who you are, just really pay attention to your body, your internal emotional climate, etc. There is an intuition that God puts in men that helps them father children in the way that they need to be fathered by a dad. The problem is sometimes we don't trust it. And so I would say first, trust your gut, as it were, trust the intuitiveness of it. And then because you have a network of redwoods, you have a group of men in your life, I would talk to some other guys around that. If you have friends, coworkers, redwoods, people from church who have kids in about the same age range that you have, maybe it's time for you guys to have a dad Saturday morning and take them out someplace and let them do the things that mom never let them do.
Right.
I got in so much trouble with my sweet wife because I would let the kids get on the table at McDonald's when she wouldn't, or I would let them, stand on the couch and jump when she wouldn't. And I think that those were some intuitive dad things that I think were really important for my kids. And I think the research bears that out. So what you don't want to do is fake it, Kenny. Fake it till you make it, and just kind of like, well, this is what I think I should do. I'd say trust your gut and don't try to be something that you're not, and bring that to your child. There was a rule in my house as I was raising the kids that kind of separated out our expectations for them and how we're different than everybody else. So it didn't matter what all the kids at school were doing, didn't matter all the kids at church were doing. There were some things that were just like, well, you're a Wooten, so we just don't do that. And I was surprised how little conflict I had with that. Especially once they got to be in their high school and college years. I even had communication back from Brooke, who I think at 12 or 13 had a meltdown one night because I had to tell her like 9 different times, no, you can't go to the boy and girl party without parents there that everybody else is going to, because Wootens don't do that. But I still love you, but no, you can't go. But she thanked me for those things, and Blake has too. I think there's a way to create something really incredible in the family unit that also gives them a move towards their independence, right? Their own choices, give them power where you can give power. Sometimes I would teach a V. I don't know if you can see this on the screen,
Yeah.
but it's like where my palms are. That was like early in their life, like birth, and then up at the top is when they're adults, and and inside the V is everything that they get to decide, and outside of the V is everything I get to decide. Deborah and I make those decisions for them. So you see, our goal is to make every decision for them as a baby, but to get them to a place where they're making all the decisions. Hopefully, by the time they go to college, they are making good decisions that are able to live with that. And as they progress age-wise, if they can't handle responsibility here, then all I do is just pull back their freedom for a little bit until they can show they're responsible and move back on. And I think there will be differences between you and mama because mamas and daddies parent different, and that's not because you fell out of love or anything like that. It's just the way it is. And moms will criticize the way that you parent, and I would encourage you to trust your gut and negotiate with mom, and y'all where you can be on the same page with the kids. Make that united front. But don't give up on mom. I really think it's an important thing. One of the best gifts you can ever give your children is to show them how to love another person in a long-term relationship. And not that it's perfect or, that there's no conflict or that there aren't trying times, but that we don't cut and run. We're in this family together, through the very end. So I don't know, Kenny, if we answered that question, but that's what I had for you.
Well, and you talked about, loving for the long run and showing how to love another person. And some of the strongest examples of that I've seen is when a couple, for whatever reason, splits up, but these parents stay together in their parenting, right? And that is not always easy. But it's not just that you're focused on the kid, but and so we talked about my 10-week class, and we'd always have guys come in and said, man, when that kid's 18, I'm done with her. I'm like, really? Birthdays, graduations, weddings, grandbabies? No. Matter of fact, I can go back, like we've had genealogies done on my family. You can go back to the 1500s, and you know what? That dude is still standing next to that crazy woman he married in 1528. He's still married to her on the chart. And so, we have to understand once we've made those decisions, you're in it. And it really is, I see this in our Christian groups a lot. We're so worried about, like you said, getting that thing just so perfect. And we're there to hold those children while they learn how to navigate a world in which they're going to have to decide how are they going to live it and how are they going to relate to God in it. And we've all been in, we all know people, we may have been those people where we were in the cocoon of family, where we were in the cocoon of economics, we were in the cocoon of religion, and somewhere along the lines, because we trusted that instead of learning how to kind of survive through that, when that thing falls away, I mean, we've seen it on the carpet it's all falling apart. Well, because somehow you thought that was what you're supposed to have your hope in, or because you let that down, because you dropped the ball on that and all of a sudden that went away. Like if you had some kind of indiscretion in your life and then religion no longer supports you, you have to understand, well, that's not who is supporting you in the first. God doesn't work like religion. God doesn't work like parents. God doesn't work like someone we were married to that no longer wants to be married to us. God works in a different way. And that's part of what we show our kids when no matter what those situations are, that we continue to live. And we continue to live intentionally. We continue to live with purpose. And we continue to live in that authenticity to the point of like, I'm not in a good place right now. Or I'm, when COVID hit and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to make a living and everything, I'm still under some stress, but I was under a lot of stress. And my kids come home and they're like, Dad's kind of cranky. And I'm like, well, what's so new? Right? But they're like, he's like more cranky than usual. And my wife was so good to tell them, it's like, you don't understand what your dad is dealing with. And I had a guy the other day ask me about the movie Bagger Vance. I don't even know why it came up, something about golf or whatever. And he goes, have you seen that? I said, yeah, there's the greatest line in the movie, I think, because he tells this kid that is ashamed of his dad for being a street sweeper during the Depression. You know, they had money and then they lost money. And he says, your dad is beating back adversity with a broom.
Mm.
And, you know, you guys have to understand, if you put on a perfect front, not only is it going to fall apart, but your kids are going to become adults and like, my dad was lying the whole time.
Right.
But if they
right.
see you struggling and they see you doing things authentically and see you doing things not to reach that goal of perfection, but to reach that goal of love, to reach that goal of, I'm here, like you said, I'm in this for the long run and it ain't easy. And I'm okay with letting everybody know some days it's not easy. And then you get back up and you get in the fight, right? So the office that I'm standing in right now faces the office to my dad's. And when we first moved out here, he would get up and work on the farm, but I was always in the office. And he was like, what time did you get up today, boy? And I'm like, well, I got up at 7. I got up at 6. He's like, well, I got up 4:30. All right. And I could see his office light on. So I would make sure it made me, I'm like, but why did he do that? Well, because that's what he thought he needed to do to make things happen. Guess why I get up at 4:30 and 5 now? Well,
Yeah.
first thing is I'm 53, so I have to get up at 4:30 or 5. That's why my dad was doing it too. That's what you learn. But the other piece was, no, to get things done and to find your time and to do the things you need to do, that's what I need to do. Now, what I also did with my dad was I would get up at 4:30, come turn my office light on, go back to bed, because he didn't know if I was in there or not. I just turned my office light on. So he quit asking me that question, which was funny to me. But it's exactly those kind of things, though. Like, my kids still talk about my dad with these like heroic tones, and they know he was flawed, and they know he was flawed to them, but he was definitely flawed through my story. You know, granddads are always greater than dads that way. But they realize, because he's finished the race, all the things he did to make it through the race, right? I get a little bit of that credit right now, but not much, because they're just now getting married, they're just now having kids, and they'll learn. I just remember watching my dad. For you guys that don't have a dad, one of the blessings you have, and I think what Roy said is fantastic, is Redwood's getting together. And let me encourage you this. When we get together on weekends or when we get together in our groups, we are good to share our hearts and to share our burdens and to share our scars. One of the reasons we're having this talk is because I'm not hearing that as much with our fatherhood. Like, I don't think people are posing, but I think there's some fear around talking about our challenges as a dad. Those of us that have close relationships with a certain brother, I think, are more apt to do that. But I want to encourage you guys to have this dialogue within the Redwood community. That's part of, not just part of our quadrants, but it's part of our grace. You know, in our group, the group I meet with online, guys have come in and said, I'm like, during this time, you know, this challenging time, I'm sick of my kids. I'm sick of my wife. I'm sick of being, my kids are driving me crazy. Of course they are. And they just didn't know that it was okay to be sick of your kids. We feel like we're not supposed to do that. Yeah, you're raising a bunch of little humans that act just like you. Why would you not be sick of that? And when you go to work and you're away from that, and then you come home and you can flip a switch and maybe be a dad for 3 hours, 4 hours, that's not that hard. As hard as it is, it's not that hard. But when you got to be a dad 24/7 while you're trying to work at home, while you got kids running around that aren't going anywhere right now, with a wife that has the same stress, it's okay to not like, believe me, if you haven't had teenagers yet, you're going to not like them, right? My kids were here for the weekend. We had a great weekend. Even within the weekend, a couple times I really didn't like them. And I had to, number one, what's up? Is that me or them? Number two, if it's them, give them grace. Number two, if it's me, give me grace. Number three, be okay with the fact that they don't have to be happy with me. I don't have to be happy with them, because we are a family of humans that are under grace and redeemed and all that we somehow seem to forget in our parenting relationships. We just feel like we have this pressure to get it all right. And God's not asking us to, and our kids don't have to have us do that. So,
Yeah. I would love sometime during the month of June, if you're in a group, I challenge you, or if you're a group leader, I challenge you to have a check-in around parenting. If you are a parent, if you have a group of parents, to have a check-in around fatherhood, and and maybe one of them is, where am I in my gold, or where am I shining the best
Mm-hmm.
in my fatherhood? Where was a shining moment just in the past week? And for some dads who are distant from their kids, it may have been a very important phone call or text. It may have been sending a gift if it was a holiday. But whatever way that you can think of, uh, what did I do well this week? What can I claim is golden in my fathering this week, this month. So I challenge you to do that. And if you have any more questions, Mike, I see you on our Facebook page, our private Facebook page, quite a bit. So they can probably get in touch with you that way. Is there any other way they can?
Oh, I just put on the wrong video. There we go, wrong button. So yeah, I'll be on the. Put your comments in under this live, and I'll be monitoring that. Um, and I really appreciate what you said, Roy, too, about the gold, because we spend so much time in our culture as fathers looking at our shadow, right? We know our shadow. We know all the screwed up things we do, but I just don't think we think about our gold, or if we sometimes when we bring up our gold, it's because it's our shadow. It's like, no, look at the pure stuff that you're doing. Look at the good stuff that you're doing, and give yourself that, speak to that, and ask your kids. I think so many times we're like, what could Dad do better? It's like, what was the
Mm-hmm.
best? There's nothing wrong with asking your kid, what was the best thing that happened that we did this week? What you're going to find is that what you thought was the Disney moment didn't even register, right? You
Right.
thought you hit this home run, and they're like, yeah, I wasn't that impressed by going to eat ice cream. I didn't like that movie or whatever, you know. And then you find out that what they liked best was going to the hardware store with you or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I'll be on the page. You can always hit me up, as a person on our Facebook page. But put your comments in here under this live, because I think that's going to be a good discussion. And so we're coming up, Roy, here on the hour, and we want to continue this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
we want to wrap it up. Yeah, I was going to say Terrence Foster, by the way, is
right,
looking for. If you watch this week, he's looking for about 20 men who are dads who'd be interested in doing some help with a marketing group. We want to have some father-focused programming coming out in the next couple of months, and Terrence and a larger committee. Mike is one of the guys on the committee. Um, are working on this. So would really love for you to jump in on that. You can get in touch with Terrence directly. If you have trouble with that, get in touch with Mike or I. We'll connect you. And would it be okay if we just end this with a prayer? Is that okay? Did you have something else you wanted to say?
yeah. The only thing I want to, so somebody asked a question about some of the research that I threw out.
Okay.
I've got some resources I'll tag in there, like just pages of, because I need short snippets of research, because nobody's telling you guys what good you're doing, and it's backed up by science, right? So I'll give you a
Right.
list of books. I'll give you a list of resources. The only reason I'm also giving you this preface is I'm going to send you my TED Talk. Not because it's a TED Talk, but because it's 15 minutes where all I talk about is the science, and you don't have to put up with all. You can mute it, you can stop it, but really it's because I had 15, 16 minutes to talk about it. I lay in a lot of this research about our development as fathers. And so that science piece, that research piece is in that. And I just want to be upfront that that's there for you to peruse and to digest. It's not a matter of, look, I mean, I'm already friends with Roy Wooten, so you can't be more impressed than that. And then I know, like, uh, the guys on this call. I mean, just look at the guys that have, and we've had other guys on here, but the guys that are watching, you guys, I'm learning from you every day as a man, as a father, as a husband. And so just understand that's what Roy and I are here for. We may do a section on all the shadows of my fathering. It would be like, what, an 8-hour, 10-hour session. Um, So yeah, we want you guys to know part of what we bring to the table is here's where I screwed up. None of us are coming into this perfect or getting out of it perfect. So you guys are awesome, doing a great job. And Roy, I'll let you end us with a prayer, and after the prayer, I'll cut us off. And pay attention to this. This will be up on the page, and so we'll respond there.
Yeah, let's pray. God, you are the perfect Father. Thank you for that. We're just aware of your presence with us right now, and even as people watch the video later, that you are with us. Father God, thank you for standing with open arms for us, no matter how far away we've moved away from you. Thank you for being a God who throws love our way generously and graciously. Father, may we come to a place where we are like that with our children, that we trust both the boundary setting that we need to do, the intuition to play with and wrestle with and be involved in the lives of our children. Father, I pray for young dads and fathers to be, that you would just help them find the sense that they're doing it, they're doing it imperfectly, and they're doing it. And Father, I pray that you would bless them with self-compassion, that even those of us who have children, we're adults now, that we are able to give compassion to ourselves as you so graciously give compassion to us. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for his example of sacrificial leadership and love. And it's in his holy name and powerful name we pray. Amen.